Caesar sees a new release. Here's your look at the new Star Ace, The Rise of the Planet of the Apes, Defo-Real Caesar with chains. Star Ace is proud to continue the Defo-Real series line of collectible figures with Caesar from Rise of the Planet of the Apes. Standing 15 centimeters tall, this soft vinyl statue of Caesar holding a chain features accurately sculpted, oversized head on a realistic body in a dynamic pose. Before the crowd goes bananas, suppose we should probably figure out first how tall the Defo-Real Caesar stands from Rise of the Planet of the Apes. While I'm getting those calculations in order, I'd like to send out a big thank you to the folks over at Star Ace that kindly provided the sample of Caesar that we could have a look at in this video. Taking it, like I said, right to the very top of his head. Let's stop it right. There we go. According to the readouts, the Defo-Real Rise of the Planet of the Apes Caesar stands almost 6 inches, 5.9 if I really want to be exact about the matter. We can switch that also over to centimeters, revealing that the figure stands exactly 15 centimeters tall. Suppose before we get down to monkey business, let's have a look at the things that come included with the Defo-Real Caesar. For starters, it comes included with an instruction sheet. Not a guide, a single sheet, and it's actually only a single side, as you can see on the other side right there. The down below bottom tells you just basically the different weapons that he wields and also how to display him on his display stand. The thing about the display stand is there's no visible pegs on it anywhere. You're literally just going to be taking Caesar and planting him wherever you decide you want to display him. That's something I'll talk about in a second. Along the top, it'll tell you the different variations, different versions of Caesar that are available. Caesar 1 is the one that we're going to be looking at in this review, but Caesar 2 and Caesar 3 are also ones available in these releases. The difference about them is not only just the weapons that they're wielding. As you can see, the one that we're going to be looking at is the one with the chain. But you'll also see with the other two that are wielding spears, that while the head sculpts do appear to be the same, what they have changed, though, is the configurations of the bodies. You can see like the arms are draped to the one side and the elbow is bent where it's holding the spear. The one with the chain, as you'll see, just has the arm straight down to the side. Go ahead and put that to the side just for the time being. He also does come included with, like I said, that display stand. I want to talk a little bit about that for a second. First of all, I love the sculpted terrain that they decided to go with here. It's got a nice dark stone look to it, especially really all around the edges. It's not simply just the top that gets afforded the sculpting. It's everywhere, even along the back. This would be an area I'm sure you probably would even see, depending on how you want to display the figure. And yet I'm impressed by the fact that they would have spent just as much time doing this as they did here doing this. You can see the top surfacing here. All the imperfections done to it. It's got some really nice dark color. Almost kind of looks like tire treads running straight through that. You'll also see, too, two placed flames, two placed fires. They're done in a translucent plastic, so in this case, you've almost got like an off yellow, closer to being an orange color. And just the very tips, just the little pointed areas of those flames, you can see you get afforded a little bit of additional reddish color. Boy, that ever looks sharp. A couple of little stones there on the side as well. And then you've got this one right here, a little more of the aggressive of the two fires. This one is neat because it has all this additional orange and then red added to the very tips of the flames. Very, very nice. One thing I also really like, and I want to commend Star Ace for doing, is when you look at the coloring of it. Of course, as flames burn, it tends to leave burn marks or ash around the sides. And you can see that they've actually gone in there and they've painted and airbrushed black all around the flames. That's a nice little touch of detail. You'll see especially more here when you look at this flame. Not only has it singed the area around it, but it's also left that on the side rock facing as well. Very nice looking display stand. As indicated when we looked at the instruction sheet, when you're taking the figure, and I love this, the bottoms of his feet are completely flat. That's not necessarily the thing I love. What I do love is that when it comes time to displaying him on a display stand, you can really put him anywhere. I don't really understand why companies have to have dedicated pegs and dedicated holes on figures. If you have a larger display stand, and this isn't the largest of display stands around, but it does give you then the option of displaying him any which way that you want. If you want to have him turned this way, you can. If you want to have him turned this way as well, you can. I like that. It's simple. It's effective. Really, in a way, it's cost savings on their ends because they have to produce a lot less of the mold. There's a lot less plastic being used, just even though it's a very tiny peg being utilized. But it then gives you, as a collector, the option of displaying Caesar exactly the way you want. Although I probably will move those chains out of the fire. I'm sure they're going to probably singe. Moving the display stand out of frame for the time being so we could focus our efforts on Caesar here, let's go ahead and pick up the statue. It is, after all, a statue because there is no posability to be found anywhere on this. The whole idea with the Defo-Real series is what you're getting is smaller, stylized statues with proportions slightly larger generally in the head and a slightly smaller than body. It may not be everybody's thing to collect, but I'm a big personal fan of deformed styling figures where basically, again, you almost have like a caricature, a slightly bigger head, and as I said, a slightly smaller body. Certainly when it comes to the things that he's wielding, in this case, he's got himself a pair of rusted chain. Well, I say rusted chain. At the beginning of this review, I said rusted chains. It's technically just really one chain that's looped through his hand. And on the end, you can see there's a pair of rusted hooks. I like the coloring that they used for this, almost like a rusted brown. I guess it does look like, by the way it's fed through his fingers, that you probably could remove this if you wanted to. It would likely involve you having to probably take one of the hooks off and then just slide the rest of the chain straight through his hand, if you don't want the chain in his hand. I like it. I think it adds a little bit more to the statue. But if you wanted to, I suppose you probably could take these off. I do also like the fact that they're real chains. I know that's a small thing to be pointing out, but real chains, there's just it just feels genuine when you're holding it, you know, as opposed to them just being pre-sculpted. You can do a lot more when you're using real functioning chains. So I just like that. Of course, when we looked at the instruction sheet, there were two other variations to the ones that we're looking at here. The other ones were wielding spears. Now, of course, the only difference with this one is it has the straight arm down to the side as it's draping down and holding the chain. The other one would have had the bent arm here, and then, of course, him wielding and holding spears. Two different variations of them. But I like this one. I like the way that it's got him in the gestured pose with his fingers, almost like he's instructing his primate army. Really, really super sharp here. I like also the expression that they've given him. And I'm not having the other two physically in hand. I feel like the other two are sculpted the same as this one, with only really the gestures in his arms being the thing that changes. I want to show you, though, the detail done to Caesar's face here. Some stellar sculpt by Stares. All these little imperfections to his skin, for example, these little tags of skin on the side of his face, natural wrinkles where one, with an expression certainly going like this, you would see like wrinkles around the brow area, especially around the top of his nose, start wrinkling up like that. Love the detailing also incorporated to the mouth. A nice small touch that I wanted to point out is the fact that they've lifted the tongue instead of having it flat down. A lot of times companies will just rush a mouth in the sense that they'll have the tongue sculpted to the bottom of the mouth because it's just a lot easier. In this case, they actually sculpted it as a separate piece. Well, not even so much a sculpted piece, a separate piece. But they've lifted the tongue so it does have a little bit more character going for it. Because it literally looks, by the way they've sculpted his tongue, like he's yelling at the moment. Nice detailing I'm hopefully showing you. I don't know if it's going to be too dark to see inside. But it's got some stellar looking paint on the interior of his mouth. I also like the fact that they did add like a semi-sheen, like a clear coat over top of some of the areas in the interior of his mouth. So it gives it almost like a nice wet look to it. Of course, we can have a look at his eyes there. Nice emerald green eyes with, of course, the eyeballs. Now, the eyeballs aren't even a solid white either. It looks like they've just off-colored it by adding a little bit of a tan or even brown color just to the eyeball itself. It just adds a little bit of extra layers to it, so it's not just a stark white. Stark white sometimes is fine and good for an eyeball, but when you really look at an eyeball up close, you'll see there's a lot of imperfections to it. By leaving the eyeball solid white, I think it would have ruined a little bit of the realism of this monkey. Spinning it around so you can certainly see all the way around here. Nice sculpting on the fur, I must admit. The coloring is generally quite dark. And yet, hopefully, as you can see, there's some nice light gray that's been incorporated to some of the tufts of fur, especially around the area of the forehead here, or the back of the head, I suppose. It is definitely a great looking, especially if you're a big fan of the Rise of the Planet of the Apes, that, I guess it would have been a trilogy. If you're a big fan of the new trilogy, although it's not as new anymore, these are great looking figures to be putting on display. And again, we can just go ahead and bring the display stand in. We'll just put it down for the time being because we'll be putting Caesar down there for a second. One last thing I want to quickly show you is not only the sculpting that they did to the lower stomach, the lower torso, but also going back to the point we started this review with talking about his flat feet. Something of which didn't really even need to be sculpted in the first place. I mean, think of it for yourself. How many times would you ever lift a figure up and look at the undersides of his feet? Especially when it comes to a statue. And yet, Star Ace took the time and sculpted just as much care to this as they did for the rest of the body. I will say, like, the Defo-Real series are generally a light to pick up statue. I mean, as soon as you pick this up, there's really not a lot of weight to it. I would imagine, even if it's a solid plastic, it's generally probably a light plastic that they're using. But that's perfectly fine for me. I'm not really going to be arguing the point that the statues are generally light feeling. What I'm going to be discussing is the fact that statues look great on display when I'm not knocking them over, of course. Again, not having the other two in my collection just yet. Hopefully that will be changing sometime soon. I don't know if the display stand changes with all the other figures as well, or if all the other Caesars will be coming with the very same display stand as what we looked at here with the Caesar that had the chain in his hand. I definitely would be invested in the idea of getting more of these, the other two at least, so I can have the different variations of it. I would imagine like the head sculpts would be the same on all of them. There may be slight tweaks from one to the other. The thing that really, again, changes from one to the other Caesars that I can see, just really from the images I've seen online, is of what he's actually holding and the gestures of the arms that they sculpted for the body. The new Planet of the Apes films are visually stunning to watch, although part of me still enjoys the campiness of the original Planet of the Apes films because those were the films I grew up watching as a kid. You really can't beat actors and actresses riding around on horseback wearing big monkey suits. Totally going to get flack, I'm sure, for calling these monkeys. If you compare the two, there's no comparison whatsoever. The new Planet of the Apes films with the new special effects and computer-generated effects that they used for the monkeys truly really made them look realistic. You would really believe that they were interacting with the actors and actresses on screen. Somehow, Star Ace manages to encapsulate all the essence of Caesar in a slightly smaller package, giving us a Defo-Real version of Caesar, the leader of the apes. Somehow the proportions work really well for Caesar. I'm a big fan of Defo-Real to start off with because I always like the oversized head, slightly smaller body. But I tell you though, it works really well for Caesar here. Maybe it's a monkey thing. It's an ape thing. I have to keep calling them apes. I do like the expression that they sculpted on his face. A nice little small touch that I mentioned in this review is that little lifted tongue at the bottom of his jaw. It really evokes an expression on his face, some energy behind what he's doing. It looks like he's commanding his ape army. Now this is Caesar 1. If we looked certainly on the instruction sheet, Caesar 1, there's Caesar 2 and Caesar 3. The only difference is Caesar 1 has him holding a chain. Caesar 2 and Caesar 3 has variations of him wielding the spear. But it doesn't just end at that. It's not simply a case there where they slid out one accessory and put in another. He has definitely different sculpted arms. The one that have him wielding a spear has his arm bent, whereas the one him wielding the chain here has his arm draped to the side. I would definitely be interested in getting my hands on the other two. I would imagine like the head sculpt probably doesn't change all that much, and possibly the display stand is going to stay the same, but really again, the difference between them is what he's wielding and how his arms have been sculpted to his body. Again, a big thank you to the folks over at Star Ace that kindly provided this sample of Caesar 1 that we had a look at in this review. Technically, I don't really even have to call him Caesar 1. If you guys are in the market of picking these ones up for yourself, let's just say you're a big fan of the new Rise of the Planet of the Apes films and, of course, that trilogy. These ones are currently pre-ordered online. You can find them through various online sites. And they believe the release date on this is first quarter 2021. So they probably should be circulating already if they haven't. The price point for this guy is $72 to $73, which is about on average the price point of what you would normally expect us to pay for the Defo-Real. I mean, again, I'm a big fan of Defo-Real, as you've seen in the past. I've reviewed ones like the Nunvallic, Jason Voorhees, to name a few. I'm really excited to put this one on display with the others, even though it probably doesn't make sense to put Caesar right next to the Nunvallic. You got to imagine they'd have an interesting conversation. But what do you guys think of the Defo-Real Caesar? Let me know down below in the comments section. And again, a big thank you to the folks over at Star Ace who made this review possible by sending Caesar my way. If you guys are big fans of this channel and enjoying all the content you're seeing and the fact that we review so many different things. 1 minute we're reviewing a horror figure, the next thing you know, we're looking at an oversized head monkey. Ape. Got to keep calling it ape. Make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. Make sure you turn on the bell notification and make sure you come back to this channel Monday to Friday, 12 p.m. and 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Sometimes we may sprinkle in there another day, another time for a video, another time for a review during that day. So sometimes it's even 3 videos a day. There's always new content coming your way. So always keep those ape peepers peeled, because there's definitely going to be a lot more content coming your way. And as always, guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.